you see the whole world shaking, and you feel your heart is breaking, take my hand, no hesitating. Oh, when you're just so tired of trying, all alone you feel like hiding, together we'll keep fighting. There's no stopping us, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it, don't stop now, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna mountains to how we can climb it, feel this, we're taking the moment, there's no stopping us, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it. Can you see the sun is shining, like a new hope, feel it rising, coming over the horizon. There's no stopping us, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it, don't stop now, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna mountains to how we can climb it, feel this, we're taking the moment, there's no stopping us, hold on, we're gonna make it, we're gonna make it. Don't you give up, don't you give up on me, don't you give up, don't you give up now, don't you give up, don't you give up on me, don't you give up, don't you give up now, don't you give up, don't you give up on me, don't you give up, don't you give up now, don't you give up, don't you give up on me, don't you give up, don't you give up now, there's no stopping.
Welcome, everybody. It's Saturday, July 31st, the last day of July. Yesterday was my birthday. I'll just throw that in. It was a nice day today, not as hot. We're going to have a nice week where the temperatures won't be stifling, so that's a good thing. We have a lot to talk about. We have a special guest speaker today. Before we go into that, the moratorium on evictions are ending today. I'm going to talk more about that next week as we see what progresses, if there's any type of extensions on that moratorium and how it's going to affect the market. But we're at a critical point right now, and especially when the moratorium on foreclosures or where we have a moratorium on mortgage payments, that'll be ending soon. I think it's being staggered by different states, so a lot is going to be happening in the next month or two. So we'll talk more about that this week as more items develop on this, more issues develop on this. Okay. So let's do our preview of what we're going to talk about today, and we'll move on with. Okay, so today we're going to talk about home inspection, and this is going to be a really good discussion because some people are confused, um, in the sense that, do I need it? Is it mandated? How is it different from the appraisal? And the big issue we're having nowadays with this very competitive market, and one house is getting like 4 or 5 offers on it. So the ones who are making the offers want to be very competitive, and they want to forego that home inspection because you never know what arises within the home inspection, and Rob will talk more about that. So from the seller point of view, if they have an offer without a home inspection, they saying, well, okay, well, they already sent in their pre-approval letter. So once we ratify the contract, we come into agreement with price and what's being paid back, if there's anything being paid back, and then there's clear sailing. You have that home inspection, that's a contingency on it, and your whole contract might stop if you can't come into agreement for repairs. So a contract without a home inspection looks better to the seller, but it's not such a good idea for the buyer. So we're going to talk about that. So let me first show you Mr. Thompson's contact information, and now I'm going to bring him in. And let me see if I can make myself smaller. Let's see, and okay. Let me see if I'm going to make you a little bit bigger. All right, trying to get both of us on the screen here. So hold on.
Okay. I see you.
You see me, right?
Yeah. Well, I did.
How did I do this before? Let's do the half screen. Okay. So here's me. I'm going to make me smaller. Oh, I had this working before where I had. All right.
I'm low tech. I have no idea what you're doing. So.
Yeah. This should do it over here when I'm plugging. All right. I'm just going to right now.
Lost audio.
Okay, I got to leave this up. Okay, so let's start off first with telling the audience a little bit of your background and what you do, and we'll go into more particular questions afterwards.
Okay. Well, I am a licensed contractor, and I've been that for years and years. Basically, I grew up in a house where my parents remodeled every house we ever lived in. So it's kind of a natural progression for me to go from that into construction. And then, so I worked up in the DC area for a number of years and built houses up there, moved down here to the Middle Peninsula area, and just decided to go into the home inspection business. Seemed like a natural aspect to pursue. So I originally started out with doing contracting half the time, remodeling, building, and then the other half of the time I started with home inspections, and then really have been doing that full time for 22 years now.
It's been a while. Okay.
Yeah. So having a good time with that.
Okay, that's good. All right, and a lot of times when I'm dealing with new home buyers, they know about a home inspection, but they're not understanding what it's all about. So when you go in and you inspect the house, what actually are you doing?
Okay, what I'm doing, which is not always the case with every home inspector, but what I personally do is to evaluate the house based on performance and safety. I don't look at any cosmetics. Hopefully none of the other inspectors out there do either. But I'm looking at the way things are designed to work and if they're living up to that standard. Looking at safety things, checking out, the electrical systems, the plumbing systems, HVAC systems, and of course the structure of the house and basically just making sure everything's working the way it's supposed to or in an acceptable fashion. Opening all the windows and doors and just looking at insulation, ductwork, all kinds of things, just to make sure things are working right. There's a misconception out there, I think, by many people actually, that a home inspection is designed to bring up a house to the current codes, and that I think is true in California, but it's not true in Virginia. So we're not looking to bring things up to current code, but we evaluate the house as it stands. If it was built in 1983, then it follows the 83 codes, not the 2021 codes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mhm.
But if you find errors, if you find building code violations, you will write that up in the report and let the potential home buyer know about that, and whether or not they want the seller to make that correction, or they'll do it on their own. But you will make them aware of any type of building code violations.
As they pertain to when the house was built or if it was significantly remodeled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say, well, gee, that water heater is from the year 2000 and it doesn't meet the 2021 code. I don't say that.
Right.
I write it as it is. If it wasn't installed, properly as a 2000 code would dictate, then of course, then I would write it up.
Right. Like I had one sale where I think the buyer might have made the modifications. They might have did the handiwork in there, but they put the hot water heater too close to the electrical box outlet.
Right.
And that was, he saw it more of a danger,
Right.
And I think it was when and this happened probably a few years ago, but I think he brought it up as a violation of building code. But that type of situation where there might be something that may danger the new homeowner, you make them aware of. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anything that's safety related, regardless. It's usually either electrical or structural as far as safety goes, but those things are certainly addressed.
And a lot of times, you see, number one, and we're going to talk about the difference between a home inspector and an appraiser. But an appraiser could maybe do their job within a half hour. You're usually in a house almost up to 2 hours. And again, it depends on the square footage and the amount of bedrooms. But your inspection takes much longer than an appraiser's inspection.
Oh, absolutely. They're not actually checking systems of the house. They're looking at the general condition of a house. They're taking room measurements, the house dimensions, just kind of looking at the general attributes of the house. They're not checking outlets and appliances and anything like that. It's nowhere near as thorough, and it's not supposed to be. Right.
And we're probably stepping more into the appraisal version of the home inspection, but the purpose of the appraisal, and that's for people who are watching, is to give value to the home. So if you're buying a house for $100,000 and you're getting the mortgage, let's say you're getting a mortgage at $100,000, the bank has to make sure that house is indeed worth $100,000, and that's what the appraiser is doing. So the appraiser is going in there, and as you said, they're measuring. They're looking at square footage. They're seeing if there's been any upgrades to the house. They'll look at the condition, overall condition of the house, but again, it won't be as deep as you do it. Right. And then they'll make the decision if this house indeed, as compared to other homes, it's usually a 1 mile radius that are about the same square footage and the amount of bedrooms, and if it has a garage and so forth, and see if it's truly worth that value. But the home inspector's job is really different from that.
Oh, sure.
And you want to make sure. And one thing, this safety is always involved. That's one big issue. If there is something physically wrong with the house, you have to make the new homeowner be aware of that. Now you mentioned like the appraiser will look at the condition of the house too. Now there are some things where, especially with FHA and VA loans, where they want to make sure that the house is safe for the new homeowner. So, for instance, the typical, the steps going up to the porch, if it's usually over, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, at 3 steps, and if there's no handrail, for FHA and VA, if I'm correct, most likely one has to be installed, correct?
4 risers, I think, is what they technically require.
Yeah.
So it's usually more than 3 steps, but
yeah,
close enough.
but again, that's going towards the safety. So the appraiser,
right,
in a certain situation, will want to make of what they see, just I don't want to say offhand, but what they see visually going in,
right.
They make sure. Like I know with the VA, they're very tough on broken windows.
Oh yeah,
that has to be repaired.
Peeling paint.
Yeah.
Big on that.
One of my sales was it wasn't an octagon. It was this cube, and the name for skates. And there's only like 2 in the area. One I sold was up in York County, and it's round, but it has like I can't think of the name right now. But anyway, it had a porch around it, but there was no railing, and the seller had to put in a railing. In other words, for the loan to close, this has to be put in.
Right.
So these things, again, with the appraiser, it's not going to look and you checking out all the outlets to make sure they're wired correctly, but they're going to look at the overall safety of the house.
Right.
Now, and I think also for the appraiser, the house does not have to use or have air conditioning, but it has to have hot water and heat.
Yeah, it does have central heat of some kind, right?
Yeah, for it to be passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are more particular things about the differences between the two. So the appraisal is necessary if you're going with a bank loan. If you're paying cash for the house, which a lot of investors do, you can get an appraiser, but you don't have to. Most likely, they'll do a home inspection to see if there's really a lot of damage to the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, if you go in the crawl space, right, you might see, things with the structure of the house, correct?
Right. Yeah. I've seen actually this year, especially, I guess a lot of the contracts have been written with the as is
right
clause. So basically they're just getting a home inspection when they do get an inspection. They're getting one for information purposes only. So, that's at least they're getting that information. But yeah, we go in the crawl space, and that's usually the drum roll is going on while I'm under the house, because that's usually where most of the bigger issues are.
Right.
And
what items might you find then under?
Well, in a crawl space situation, you could have some plumbing leaks, major plumbing leaks. You could have cracked or collapsed beams or joists. You could have rotten sills, which are the members, joining the foundation walls. Those are usually the big things. Sometimes there's lots of fungus under there, which I don't, really address the fungus other than noting it. That's up to the termite and moisture inspector.
Right.
We defer to them, but we do note it if we see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, those are the kinds of things we see. I mean, it's rare, actually. It's been my experience in the 22 years I've been doing this, where you've had some major structural problems. I think that one of the first houses I did had a collapsed central beam, which was in an old house built in the 1800s, and they had to replace the beam, jack the floors up, and all kinds of stuff. But typically we don't really find serious issues under a house. most people take care of their houses.
Yeah. But you will notice, well, in the state of Virginia, we have to get a termite clear letter.
Yes.
But even if you discover some termite damage,
Right.
the inspector still has to go in there.
Oh yeah. No, I'll note it. I'll take a picture if there's something active or if I see evidence of it. But sure, it's up to them. I'm not an expert in bugs by any means.
Right. Yeah. And this is going to move us into our next question. And you already talked about, like, I imagine if there's a damaged beam in a crawl space, or if you see some of the joists that have to repair, now we're going into more money to bring it up to par.
Right.
The other big ticket items, like when I show homes, and rightfully so, the buyers really want to know, the age of the roof.
Right.
And how old, and we talked about the HVAC system.
Yes.
How old is that and how that's working? Because replacing that is like the most expensive items.
Right. Correct. So yeah, so the roof is the big, that's what you really, ideally, that's what a buyer would want to look at, is just the big ticket items, not all these little small things like defective GFIs and, things like that, cracked light fixtures or whatever. But they want to look at the big ticket items like a roof, like you said, and the HVAC. Those are, several $1,000s. HVAC systems can be, between $8,000 and $30,000. I mean, right. House, but yeah, so that's a huge expense. The roof's a big expense, $10,000 or more probably for most houses. And the other expense would be, I guess, windows. I'll tell you, window prices have just over the last 20 years have just skyrocketed. Right. And then, of course, recently with COVID and everything, all the building materials have gone up. But windows are expensive to replace. It's usually a few $100s a window, so that can add up, especially in an older house. So yeah, those are the big ticket items, appliances, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I noticed, like, well, the homes I've been showing in the last few years, most of them have gone from wooden frame windows to vinyl windows.
Yes.
So it's really like a lot of an older house, and when it has the wood frame windows, and sometimes the buyer will ask for a seller concession, for money to go towards the new windows. Sometimes we can make that happen. Sometimes we can't. Right. But that's another big issue. And you're right. It's the windows.
Well, there's a little bit of a misconception on a lot of the window issues as far as like their efficiency. And you look at an old house, built before 1980, where they use single pane windows. And some of the older houses, of course, all have wood sash windows. It's actually almost more efficient energy-wise to have storm windows installed with those single pane windows than it is to replace those whole window units with vinyl. It's interesting. I mean, you have some companies are better than others, obviously, with their manufacturing, but it's nice to keep the character of those old houses if you can.
Right. So, you're correct. Yeah. So our next question, and it's really a big topic, and I noticed that when my clients, and especially when I search for properties for my buyers, and I see usually when the house goes into contract, right? And this is what the agency, not so much the buyers, when they go on to like a Zillow or a the other websites that show the listings. Right. But I could see when it actually goes into contract, and usually it goes into contract. I could see the date it was listed. All right. So let's say, it was listed on 7/28. All right. And then all of a sudden it goes to pending.
Yeah.
And the difference, what we could see as agents, because it changes, and we see the contingency on it, that there's a home inspection. So in Zillow and Truly and the other ones, it's still active to the buyers. They say, oh, that's still out there, but they can't see it's in contract.
Correct.
But what's happening in the last 6 months or so, it goes straight to pending because they're not putting a home inspection on it. So unless it's in a condo association, then they still have to read the documents on the condo. So it still has to stay in that contingency area.
Sure.
But if it's a regular resale of a single family home and it's not in the condo association or not in the property owners association, it's going right now from it hit the market on the 28th and on the 30th it's pending. So a lot of these people, and it's a lot of people, are foregoing right now the home inspection.
Yes. It's unfortunate.
So what's your opinion on that?
Well, for job security, I think I'd like them to not do that.
Yeah, right.
But I know I've heard stories where people are foregoing the appraisals, and all the inspections just to get the house. But obviously, I am a proponent of home inspections, and to be honest with you, when we first started in business, if somebody wanted me to do a new house, I'd say you probably don't need a home inspection for that because it's been under the county's inspected it.
Right.
And it's all, should be fine for you. But, then I had people, insisting, and actually had one house. It was a brand new house that we inspected. And I went underneath the house in the crawl space, and they had not installed any of the plumbing waste lines.
Wow.
In the house. And this is a brand new house. So, you flush the toilet, it went right into the crawl space. I mean, none of the sinks nothing was plumbed. So anyway, I've always been a proponent. I mean, people think, oh, new house, you don't need that, but actually you do, because you don't know what you're going to get. I've done a number of new houses in Williamsburg and other places where, we find issues while they're under construction even. So I just always recommend it. Even if you don't want to use it as a bargaining chip, which a lot of people do, you need to at least have all the information that you can possibly get before you go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I wasn't in the business, I would still get a home inspection.
Yeah. I mean, basically, and you talked about what's in the house. Like you could go into that was the new construction, but something that was still built, let's say, 2018, 2019,
Sure.
And you walk in and it looks sturdy, the floors look good, and visually it looks fine. You go, hey, what could be wrong with this house?
Right.
There could be a lot of things wrong with the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even, older houses. I mean, everybody's watching HGTV now, so it's kind of interesting. Just the way people are remodeling for sale. They're either flipping houses or they're remodeling them. Everybody pretty much puts the same stuff in their house, but everything looks really nice in appearance. And it's not until you get up into the attic or in the crawl space or the basement, or you start looking at, inside the electric panel, you start to see, oh, okay, well, there's some stuff here that's not really right. So,
Right.
There's a lot of eye candy, but, there's more to it than just the appearance.
And that's what I've been saying on my podcast. I mean, unless you're really loaded and something when we look at our big ticket issues where you have to replace a whole roof or you have to replace a whole HVAC system and that costs you $20,000 to $30,000. If that doesn't bother you, if that doesn't put a hole in your pocket, then perhaps you should forego a home inspection. I still recommend it. I want to go online saying that.
Thank you.
But if you're a first time buyer, you have limited funds, you just have your money to go to the closing table, to pay your down payment and your closing costs, then you need to do it, and it's it's usually around, and you don't have to go in now what you charge, but they're usually around $350. They're a little bit more than if it's more bedrooms, and square footage.
Right.
But it's something you just have to say, I got to do it. It's not refundable if you don't buy the house. It's just an expense, but it just gives you peace of mind. It's so important to have that peace of mind.
And you mentioned, first-time home buyers, and that's actually, it's a good opportunity for a new buyer, someone that has never owned a home before, to actually get a little bit of education,
Right.
What's in their house and how it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, I run into people all the time that are clueless on, most everything. So, I mean, I've had people ask me what the lockbox is if it's some kind of garage door opener. So, I mean, it's just nice to be able to educate people a little bit and help them out so they have some understanding before they get in there.
Yeah.
And
that's another good point to follow up, because the home inspection is not always about bad things.
No.
It could be some good things about the house, and then you educate the people how to maintain it. Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. So,
I was just going to say, for one example, there's one particular brand of window, and I don't know if it's Anderson. There's a series of windows. I think it might be Anderson that makes them. They're vinyl clad, so they're wood underneath, and
right,
vinyl on the outside. And this particular series, everything's covered in vinyl except for the ends of the windowsill on the outside.
right.
Where the wood is exposed. So for whatever reason, I don't know if they do that to allow condensation to escape. Actually, I think it's a poor design. Tons of houses have them, so it's it is what it is. And I've seen plenty of them that are rotten. But one of the educational things is to tell people when they have those types of windows, which several do, is that they have to maintain the ends of those windowsills, caulk them or seal them or paint them or whatever,
Right.
just to keep the weather out. So that's just one example.
Yeah, because home inspectors will have they'll show what's been inspected, what's good about the house, and then some. It's not issues that say, well, maybe you have to ask the seller to fix it, but just to be aware of it, to keep an eye out for it, and they'll tell you how to fix it and make that repairs. But then there's always like the bigger items where it may be costly to repair, and you might say you want to ask the seller to do that, So
Right.
so the reports, like I said, it's not always negative, because they might say, hey, this is what's nice about the house, and here are steps on how to maintain it, working properly and in good order.
Right.
So in the long run, and I'm saying it out to everybody, it's so important to have that home inspection. It's just it's $350 or higher, whatever, but it's something that it'll just give you peace of mind to do that, because you never know what's. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I had one buyer who went with a home inspector, and they went into the crawl space under the house, and maybe the crawl space. I know I couldn't have fit.
Wow.
Maybe it was like 2 or 3 feet, but he went, and they were under the house like for about a half hour.
Yeah.
This is what my buyer was. He was like, like a hands-on, and had to see into everything.
Right.
I have no idea what a crawl space has to look like. So, like I said, and I let people know that, and it's a rule of realtors. When we talk about it, we have to let them know we're not an expert on this. I could say, the floors look good, the wood, but I don't know what's going on underneath. You have to get that checked out by a home inspector. I'm not a professional. So we need the home inspectors to do that, to do those areas, like going up in the attic.
Yep.
By the way,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we've done over 10,000 home inspections. I don't have an actual number, but I can tell you that there are probably 20 people who have gone under the house with me in all that time.
Yeah.
So it's a very small percentage. Most people don't ever go in their own crawl space, so they have no idea what's under there.
Yeah.
But more people go in the attics because it's a little more accessible and a little simpler. Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting.
I heard from one home inspector. You can let me know if that's correct. But I mean, one reason why people don't want to go in crawl space, because there's all different type of insects and spiders. But he told me if you did not find any type of insects below it, bugs, whatever, that's actually a bad sign. Is that true? Or what's your opinion on that? If there's no type of wildlife underneath.
I would say that's excellent. That's not a problem. No, I mean, usually insects are attracted to moisture,
Uh-huh.
and obviously you don't want moisture under your house if you can help
Okay.
it. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I disagree with that.
Yeah, he was saying the reason why, because that meant there were gases coming up and killing any
Well,
type
not
of.
necessarily. I
No, no,
think the soil could be treated with the old poisonous types of pesticides.
uh-huh.
I know that when my parents and I built a house up in Northern Virginia, we treated the heck out of the soil and the basement with some stuff that was, I'm sure, cancer causing.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, nothing lived down there. Any frogs that went down there died. I mean, anything
Uh-huh.
that was down there while it was
Yeah.
under construction. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
I don't. I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, as
Okay.
far as not finding wildlife.
All right. Well, anyway, do I have your correct contact information on the screen? Is everything correct there?
Yes, yes, you do.
You want to add anything?
Well, no, I can't really think of anything. I appreciate your support for the industry and encouraging people to get those home inspections. And I will say that the market is so fast paced right now that like you said, people are waiving the inspections, and this is a perfect time to schedule your home inspection because things are really slow for us.
Right.
So anyway, I wish everyone well. It's amazing how quickly the houses are turning over.
Yeah. But I would with one of my companies, we had to have the buyer sign a waiver if they decided not to go
Right.
with a home inspection. And I would do that today if I mean, most of my buyers will go for a home inspection, but if someone didn't, I would have them sign a waiver that they had, they agreed, they would, talked about how important the home inspection is, but they decided not to go with it.
Right.
Because if they find anything afterwards that's wrong, and they're gonna always say, "Oh, the agent didn't bring it up to me how important it was," but I would. That's so important to have that home inspection.
Yes.
Underneath, when you look at it, close up and crossing your eyes, and I mean dotting your eyes and crossing your T's.
Hopefully, you're not crossing your eyes.
Yeah, and crossing your eyes
while you're inspecting, anyway.
All right, then. So this was very good. It was very
I appreciate you having me do this. Thank you.
All right. Okay. And so I wish you the best, and we'll be in touch for the future. And we might have you on again. Okay.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, appreciate it. And you go by Chris?
Chris is fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always type in Christopher on your messages, but anyway, okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you very much, and you have a good rest of your weekend.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you too. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So that's good. So make sure you get that home inspection. That's very important. Okay. I just show. It's not really about what we talked today, but today's little video is the importance of what time is money in your home, and to be aware of how much equity you're building up in your home. So this is a short little video on that. So that's for our potential sellers out there. It's still a wonderful time, as Rob talked about it. The houses are going like hotcakes, and they're going above asking price. So if you're ready to purchase, it's a great. I mean, I'm sorry, if you're ready to list, it's a great time to do so. You have my contact information. Let's get your home on the market. We really do need listings. Okay. So I think I hear my a producer calling me. I think we have a special guest or two guests in the audience.
Great news. We have two famous people, well, at least one is a person in the audience. I seem to be the only young person who remembers this brilliant act. They appeared on TV a fair bit, such as The Ed Sullivan Show. He would instruct the dog to do various tricks, but the dog totally ignored him. His catchphrase was "He hears me." Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Williams and Louie.
Well, I haven't seen Bob Williams and Louis in the longest time. It's really nice seeing them again, and I'm glad they were in the audience. Okay, so we'll see you next week. I think next week we're going to see how the things go with the ending of the moratorium on evictions, and see how if there's been an extension, and if not, how it's affecting people's lives right now. I think that'll be a good topic for next week. So be well. Be kind to each other. If you haven't been vaccinated, please do so. I think it's so important. I really thought we were out of the tunnel with this virus. Now we came to a bit of a roadblock, but it seems that the people who are vaccinated are not getting sick, and if they are getting sick, it's mild. They're not going on ventilators. They're not going to hospitals, and they're not dying. All right. So this vaccination, the proof is that it's working by what we have seen so far. So please consider it. Okay. So again, always remember, the greatest power we have is to love, and the greatest gift is each other. And I'll see you next week.